Hey, what's up? Somewhat Supernatural, Scuba Steve here, coming to you live from my living room studio with episode 4 of Somewhat Supernatural. We will be discussing Ghosts of Tennessee. I would like to take this time to introduce my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, the Mid-South maniac himself, Corey Kaufman. How's it going, brother?
Senor Scuba, how you doing this evening?
Oh, just got out of work not too long ago. I am officially on Thanksgiving Day vacation. So
man,
I get a whole week off of just relaxing. And, I got a drive coming next week. I'm going to go visit my mom. She lives about 8 hours away. So that's really all. But everything in Texas, if you're going to drive, it's not, everything's 8 hours away. So, I got to drive ahead of me, but I'm excited. I haven't seen my mom for a while, and I get to see my brother and my sister and nieces and nephews and stuff. So it's going to be a good little family trip vacation that we're going on. So
good deal. Yeah. It's, I wish I could say it started the same for me. I technically got to go back to work for like 2.5 or 3 days next week. So, yeah. But it's been a long work week. I just got back. I went to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Oddly enough, this last weekend. So got to experience some things out there. So it was like a mini vacation, but people were wanting to get out and get some things done. It was pretty busy.
Yeah.
But it went faster than it should have. And then just back here and working on a few projects.
Yes, finally. Sir. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
And so I'm really excited about that. And yeah, man, keeping it going. So, and then oddly enough, tomorrow's Saturday, and it's funny because we'll be, we're touching on this. Yeah, some of the stuff I do on the side is kind of gimmicky, but got some Ghostbuster events in the middle of November booked for tomorrow and Sunday, which is kind of gimmicky, but and I know we'll touch base on it. There is a reason we started that group. So, but it's funny because I learned a lot more once I started with that group, about everything and more that we'll, talk about or touch base with. So
yeah. Well, and do you want to give the group name out? Go for it, man.
Yeah. And everyone's going to think, oh, you're just, it's cute. You dress up, whatever. And a DeSoto County Ghostbusters on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's part of it. A lot of it's community involvement and everything like that, but we have been asked, to come check stuff out. We do have a couple guys who are very intuitive with like what you've done, in doing the research and going and tracking and trying to find sources and everything, and I've slowly starting to get a little bit more acclimated with that. So we kind of do a little bit of both. Some people, I tell people, hey, we take stuff serious, but we also do it is just a kind of an awareness thing, but also it brings up a lot of good conversation, whether it's movie driven or, spiritually driven, with a lot of things. So,
and anybody that is in the paranormal business and says that Ghostbusters did not influence them is full of shit. They're full of shit. You know what I mean? We saw that movie growing up and thought, hey, that would be badass. Now, of course, we don't have real proton packs. We don't get to go out there and catch ghosts, like that. But everybody that is in the paranormal business has seen that flick and has thought, hey, that would be cool. You know what I mean? And even in my group, we always throw those Ghostbuster things out there, like we'll be driving to a location and we're like, Ray, what did you do? And we just say stupid lines, or, I call myself the Egon of the group because I build the equipment,
Sure.
And so we have fun with it, and hell, I would love for us to actually dress the part to go do these investigations. That'd be fucking cool.
And that was the thing, before I started with it, I was pretty accustomed to it, but I didn't realize how influenced it was by Dan Aykroyd and everything that he believes in.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to kind of fabricate it into a movie that could appeal to people, but in a sense did open up some conversations. Yeah. And you see interviews with him since the movies and since everything else. And he's very, very much in tune with the spiritual world and ghosts and aberrations and all that, that play into that. So it's just interesting that there are some core things that's centered around that some people, yeah, it's more than just a movie. So
Yeah.
it is a literal gateway to just have that, start that conversation, and things just kind of affect that from there. So
Yeah. So what I like to always do when I have my guests on, my host, my guest host, because you're more than just a guest, you're a guest host. Have you ever had any paranormal experiences?
it's weird because I never really could tell as a kid, because they all happened when I was a kid. Most of the stuff that I would think, or what I don't know, looking back at it, if it's burned into my brain as much as it is at the age of 33 to be able to tell you verbatim to like the time of day, the smell in the air, like if I can recite that, of all the stuff that your brain can retain, I feel like there's two events specifically that I encountered as a child that had to have had those ties into them. It's not just some typical I'm scared of something, or it's a something under my bed kind of situation. The first one in particular, probably happened when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And at the time, we're living in Niantic, Illinois, a small farming town outside of central Illinois, about 3 hours south of Chicago. And my carpet was like neon blue. I had the weirdest toys. My bedspread looked like a racetrack. I could tell you how that bedroom was set up.
Yeah.
Now, if this event wouldn't happen, I wouldn't remember any of that shit, Steve. There's no way.
Yeah.
But at the time, I watched a lot of like rerun cartoons that like my parents grew up watching.
Mm-hmm.
And one in particular was called David the Gnome, right?
Yes,
okay,
dude.
So,
I loved that show growing up.
All right. So I bring that up because some people don't know what that is, but I bring it up because I think their cartoon maybe originally came out in the 60s, late 60s,
Yeah.
but they played reruns at 4 or 5 in the morning. Why was that at 4 or 5 in the morning? I don't know. Not a big deal. Anyways, all I remember is, waking up and looking at the foot of my bed, and its bed felt, 12 feet long, and I'm probably 3 or 4 years old. And I'm looking at the head of the bed, and there is the troll. Okay, the troll's from David the Gnome. There's one. So it's basically that head at the end of my bed. Their eyes don't have any detail. It's whited out eyes. So it was the form of the troll head from David the Gnome, essentially.
Yeah.
But for some weird reason, it was overtoned all in purple. I don't know if the color had significance or not. But he just stayed there laughing and like yelling. Nothing in particular. And yeah, as a kid, you freak out, you yell, you scream for your parents. Well, my parents are down the hallway. It's a small 3-bedroom house. They both wake up. They come and get me, ask me what I'm freaking out about. And that thing's still yelling at me. That thing's still communicating with me somehow. And I'm wide awake because my parents are talking to me like, what are you looking at? And what's really freaky is you think, they take you out of that element. They take you out of the bedroom and maybe goes away. Maybe you're whatever. Well, I'm looking over my dad's shoulder and they're bringing me to their bedroom, and that thing is still down the hallway following me and just doing that until they shut their door. And that was it. But the problem was that weirded me out so much as a kid and freaked me out that I didn't sleep in my own bed for another 4 or 5 years until we literally switched rooms and stuff got remodeled and all that. This house was probably built in the 40s, nothing crazy, nothing super old.
Yeah.
So I don't, I never really thought there was any history tied to the house. So that was one instance. And you could say, oh, well, it's tied to this, whatever. But it's just the fact that I was awake and this event was going on.
Yeah.
It did feel a little bit like sleep paralysis, like we talked about a couple episodes ago. I really couldn't tell because I couldn't move.
Yeah.
But just the fact that the event was still occurring, my parents are still trying to figure out why. My parents remember the event. Of course, they didn't see or hear what was going on, whatever. So you fast forward from at the age of 3 or 4 to about 10 years later. By that time, the house has been remodeled, this and this. Bedrooms have been switched. Literally, my parents' bedroom is where my growing up child bedroom used to be, and vice versa. But one day my dad had to go to work early. I was like 12 or 13, and then my mom was getting ready for work, and I somehow got out of my bed or whatever, and she's like, "Well, hey, you can go sleep in our big king bed." Because it's a really nice bed, nice ceiling fan. I didn't have any of that shit. So I actually went and just crashed in my mom's room, and she's getting ready for work in the bathroom. So I'm back in the same bedroom, mind you, that I had that 10 years prior. I had that whole freak out thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm trying to go back to sleep. It's about 3:15, 3:20 in the morning. I remember that. The alarm clock was huge, like, shine on the wall, what time it was. And so I'm starting to doze off. I'm laying on my left side, looking over the bed, and I close my eyes. I open them real quick, and there's a stack of pots and pans from the ground to the ceiling. Looks like there's about 50 of them, right? Just random rusted out pots and pans, whatever. Kind of reminded me of what is that? The Disney thing with the music, Fantasia.
Fantasia.
Okay, so all Fantasia, all those plates and stuff, but just picture like rusted out pots and pans, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it going, what the hell is that? And next thing I know, dude, they all come crashing down. Big, loud, like metallic crashing, all that. I don't freak out as much, but my mom hears it, runs down the hallway, and is like, what the hell was that noise? And I'm trying to explain, like, you heard that? Okay, here's what it was. There was a stack of pots and pans next to this bed, and they came crashing down. And she goes, Corey, there's no pots and pans here. Yeah. And I'm like, but you heard it, correct? And she's like, yeah, and I'm like, but nothing. I was like, there's literally, and we looked around the house all morning, couldn't find anything. Now, I know those are pretty probably low key examples, but that's my two experiences. My dad and my mom always told me that the house, I think they made up stories from their childhood, whatever. But, after all those two little events that happened 10 years apart, I talked to my dad once, and he said, well, the funny thing was we bought this house that the older lady who owned it before us did die in the house, natural causes. But he goes, the weird part, it wasn't that about her dying. It was just like after they moved into the house and the house came with like a lot of the stuff that was left.
Yeah.
There was an older oven downstairs that probably hadn't worked forever. And they'd been living in the house for probably like 3 months until they decided to move that oven. Well, they wanted to check the oven first. And when they opened it, there was a plate with a soft boiled egg on top. Like it looked like it had just been like cooked or something. And so that weirded my dad out anyway. So, I mean, I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I don't know if the lady's death had anything to do with it. It's just two instances that, if you're able to give that much detail on an event,
yeah, definitely,
it's impacted you somehow. Was I physically harmed? No. Was I mentally kind of perturbed? Absolutely.
Well, yeah. And, we, as kids, and that's why anytime a child tells me they see something or they've seen something, I believe them 1000%. Sure. Because we have that innocence as children. And to me, that is something that the other side can connect with. You know what I mean? Whether it's something that is friendly, like a relative or something that's trying to let themselves be known, or if it's something malicious, And I saw, and I kind of got chills when you were talking about the little troll thing that you saw. I saw something similar as a kid, about the same age. And this happened around the same time that I saw the Hat Man for the second time.
Right. Yep.
And it happened in the same house that we lived in. But I didn't see any distinct features, but it was a little thing that I heard in the living room. I heard like a sawing noise coming from the living room. And I tried, we all shared one room, grew up poor. So we lived in this duplex that was one bedroom. My mom's bed was on one side of the room with my dad, and my bed was on the other side. And my brother and my sister's crib was at the foot of their bed. My brother and my sister are what we call Mexican twins. They're 9 months apart. So we call them Mexican twins. But I heard a sawing noise, and I heard it clear as day, like somebody was sawing wood. And so I woke my mom up. And my dad wasn't home. He worked in the oil field, so he was hardly ever home. And I heard it sawing. And I woke my mom up, and I remember everything. I remember every detail of this room. I remember, the bed sheets that we had, and the sawing kept going. And she's like, no, it's just your brother or your sister's bottle. Just go to sleep. And I'm like, no, that's not a bottle. I know what the fuck a saw sounds like.
Right.
So it had stopped while I was talking to my mom.
Sure.
Well, as soon as she fell back asleep, and my mom snored when we were younger. I don't know if she still snores, but my mom snored really loud. So as soon as she started snoring again, I heard the sawing noise, and then I heard wood fall. And I was like, whoa, what the hell? And we had, we had wooden floors. So when you would walk, you would hear it, And so she's asleep. My brother and my sister are asleep. And I'm just laying there with the blanket. And it was a blue bed sheet. I remember it was like a light blue bed sheet. And I'm laying there and I hear footsteps, tiny footsteps though, like just like tiny little tick, 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 tick. That's how it sounded. And so in the doorway, because right, I could see right in the doorway, that's where the living room was. I see this little thing standing in the doorway, and it screamed at me, and it just kept screaming, and I freaked out, and I got out of bed, and I wasn't experiencing sleep paralysis at that time,
Sure.
and I got out of bed and I jumped from my bed to my mom's bed. Don't know how I made it, but I made it. And it ran under my bed, and I saw it run under my bed. And so I woke my mom up, and she's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "No, like there was something in that. Like I saw it. It screamed at me. I saw it." She got up, turned the lights on. There was nothing under the bed.
Of course.
From what she said, I didn't get up and look, but from what she said, there was nothing under the bed, and there was no sawdust in the living room or anything. You know what I mean? So, but I know what the fuck I saw. I know what I heard, and it was just like a tiny little. Okay, so I want to do a show on these creatures. They're called duendes. So basically like gnome type creatures. They're seen all over like Mexico and stuff. There's a lot of videos on YouTube, and they look like David the Gnome. Like they look like yard gnomes. And there's a lot of documented cases. And could it be people faking it? Of course, but it gives me chills because that's what I saw.
Yeah.
Let me see in the chat. It says, "What is it about people who experience paranormal activities and their love for horror movies? What's the connection?" Well, we're fucked in the head. Yeah. That's all I can say.
We're embracing it by this point. You have to embrace.
You have to embrace it. Because as a kid, I was so frightened of any of all that. I wouldn't watch horror movies. You know what I mean? But once I started getting older, that's when I was like, it's a movie. But seeing the stuff in real life was more frightening than seeing it on TV. You know what I mean? So I guess there's a connection of people who love horror movies and, people who have seen stuff like that. But I know for me, that's where my love of paranormal comes from, is because of the stuff I saw as a kid. And I haven't seen anything that vivid in a long time, and I would love to. You know what I mean? As a paranormal investigator, that is something that we want. We want to see that stuff. If I could go back in time to that point in time as an adult in some kind of time machine or something, just to prove that, hey, this shit happened, I would love to. You know what I mean? Bowser said Corey's mustache is pretty vivid. Oh, yes, it is. I have mustache envy right now. I grow this little, I call it my beaner sash. I can say that. This is my little beaner sash.
That's why I'm not taking off my hat. Okay.
Well, yeah, you have the nice beard. I have the full head of hair. We'll just leave it at that.
I'm just saying, I think the house I grew up in made me prematurely lose my hair. Okay, I'll put it that way.
Hey, and hell, it might be possible. It could be possible. You know what I mean? But yeah, man. So that's very strange. It's a very similar experience. It's not exactly the same as, to what we saw was different. But hell, I used to watch David the Gnome on Nickelodeon. It used to come on Nick Jr. at 5 o'clock in the morning. That was the first show that they would show, was David the Gnome.
And honestly, that show is pretty heavy. Like looking back at it now and the context of it and some of the things that were in it, being very subliminal. As a kid, you're just like, it's just, oh, that's scary. This spider, this gnome, this. But I don't know. For me, it was just interesting that the head, for example, was purple. And then the fact that it felt like some, I look back at it now, some of the information I have, and it's like, okay, why that visual? What kind of vessel was that? Or was it trying to, I don't know. I overthink it, but it's just, I'm curious what the point of it was. Will I ever know? Absolutely not, but it's funny because like I try to talk to people who have no clue what the hell that show is.
Yeah.
Or that visual, or even the mindset of like a story like yours, where it's like, I've had a thing yell at me as a kid that couldn't really tell you why or what. And I'm telling you, man, if it freaked me out enough, it wasn't just like, oh, there's monsters. It was just like that pretty much set me up early on to just not want to even be in my own room to play half the time when I was a kid. So I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, and it's really crazy, man, that people have these experiences. You know what I mean? That's why I love bringing you guys on, because it's not just me babbling about what I've experienced. It's to show that other people all over have had these experiences, and you've gone so long thinking, man, I'm the only one that's experienced this. I'm the only one that's, had this type of experience. And in actuality, I mean, who knows? Maybe somebody else that we know has had that experience as well, or somebody else that's watching may have seen something very similar, and I'm not saying it's the same exact entity or anything like that, but once I do the episode on duendes, I think you'll find it very interesting, because it basically what they look like. And I want to try to get TJ some videos that we can play of them, because it's fucking creepy, man. That's the only way I can say it is. It is fucking creepy. And it's anything for me that comes out of like Mexico, or any legends that come out of, South America, for me, for some reason, I don't question them. I don't ever question anything that comes out of Mexico or South America, as far as like some type of urban legend or hauntings or anything like that. And I guess it's because the way I was raised, to believe in spirits and stuff like that. So anytime I hear about, we have this legend called the lechuza, and basically it's a giant owl that has a witch's face. And if you see it, it can carry you away and kill you. And it doesn't sound scary, but as a kid, hearing these stories about the lechuza, and then even seeing, I'm not saying I saw like a witch's face or anything, but I've seen some big ass fucking owls, that shouldn't have been where there.
Right.
And, but that's a whole different topic. That's a whole different story. Today we are talking ghosts in your neck of the woods, ghosts of Tennessee. Yeah. So, but before we get on to the next topic, let me see. What does it say? Sunglasses before next topic. Are you talking about like right now? Do you have sunglasses, Corey?
Man,
here we go. Oh, shit.
Oi, you. Yeah, you cunt. You want to know why you look like a drop pie? Well, that's because you're not wearing any Project Louder merch, you fucking goddamn lousy son of a bitch. How about you do us all a goddamn favour? Park up, pull your fucking head in, visit the website over at projectlouder.net, click on the merch tab, and most of all, tell yourself you're sick of looking like an asshole. Grab some of that merch, treat yourself to a nice cold frothy, and start being the mad cunt we both know you truly are, before I stab you in the face with a soldering iron. Cheers, cunts.
Hello there, creepy ghouls. Do you like spooky things and horror movies? Then Cabin 13 has the stuff for you. Check out their selection of horror-themed props, pins, busts, action figures, collectibles, and more. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram. Be sure to visit cabin13.com and buy something, or I'll kill you!
Marcio Charlie's Horror Costume Studios. Premium hand-sculpted latex masks, busts, and hoods. Everything is handmade and painted by Marcio himself. Be sure to check out his wide range and selection of products over at Facebook and Instagram at Horror Costume Studios.
Oh, hello. Do you know about Project Louder? Well, let me tell you. Project Louder is home to 16 of the finest podcasts a nerd could possibly procure. They have a show for everyone. Whether you're into horror films, modeling, comics, 90s kid shows, or that weird tentacle-filled subgenre you search for at 3 in the morning. So head on over to projectlouder.net and treat yourself to something truly exquisite.
Graveyard Classics. Horror-themed tees and posters, professional in-house screen printing, and Jaclay prints. powered by Death Style Art and Graphics. Go see what you can dig up over at graveyardclassics.net.
Come on down to Mask by Lance, premium Friday the 13th custom-made hockey mask down there in Tennessee by Lance McKinney. Find him on Facebook and Instagram over at Mask by Lance. Go order one now, boy. Yee-hoo!
God damn it, that Mask by Lance gets me every goddamn time. Every
Dude,
goddamn time.
I was an hour away from his house, and I just couldn't fit it into my schedule. Well, my wife's schedule to go see him when we were in Gatlinburg, and I felt like shit. But that pretty much sums up East Tennessee. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. So before we get into it, because it just popped in my head right now. I just want to talk a little bit on how we met each other. You know what I mean? Because it's not like we've known each other like this long time. You know, we just met each other by chance. You know, we became friends on Facebook, you know, because Corey is the man that inspired me to cosplay as Jason Voorhees. Now, I had dressed up as Jason, but when I saw you as Jason, I was like, holy shit, like my mind exploded. I was like, I got to up my game, you know? So I want to say thank you. Because of you, I upped my cosplay game, because I mean, man, your shit is amazing, you know, and we need some more photo shoots, bro. That's all I'm saying. We need some photo
we
shoots.
do. And real quick, yeah, it's funny how that works. I mean, you know, I follow a few people, and then I start to build up things, and then it's really cool how things trickle down, because, you know, a lot of people sometimes you unconsciously don't realize what you're kind of doing for the fandom.
Yeah.
Even if it's very non-purposeful. You're just like, I'm a fan being a fan. And they say, you know, you got fans of you being a fan, but people, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And, yeah, meeting you in Blairstown the first time, that was a trip, dude.
I mean, that was awesome. I was like, holy shit, Kaufman.
Looking dude, like, this is fucking nuts. You know?
I was like, oh, you're Kaufman, right? And I was like, we're Facebook friends, bro. Like, and it was so cool. And, you know, and I love that the fandom, and even just Blairstown, man, I attribute everything now, this podcast, everything to Blairstown, because that's where I met all you guys. You know what I mean? And that right there was the catalyst for all of this, you know? And so just the fandom, and people don't understand, like when I talk about, oh, I love dressing up as Jason and doing appearances, and it goes beyond that, man. Like, this fandom is something that is just amazing, you know? And there's a lot of people out there that are like super fans, and they just, you know, they go a little overboard with it, whatever. But
I don't know what overboard means. Overboard can mean a lot of things, like being obsessed with a vehicle in a movie. You know, it's shit like that.
Well, you know, I mean, I can say I personally know somebody that bought a vehicle from the movie. Yeah, but you know, whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Sounds like a loser to me.
No, man, he's so awesome. He's awesome. But no, man, and you know, with the stuff that you do, and you know, you have the Horror Crypt page, which is another awesome idea, you know, and I love that page, you know, for people that, because yeah, there's all these Facebook pages, but I love the Horror Crypt, even though we're small. But if somebody wants to go in there and do a raffle, you know, we're not dicks about it. Everybody tries to support everybody that's in there, and it's a great community to be in, you know. And so our love for Friday the 13th is what basically got us here, you know. And like I said, I love the fact that I made so many new friends off of just my love for a movie, you know, because I wasn't the type of person to go on a solo trip by myself, you know, and I flew from Texas to, you know, New York, and then drove to Blairstown. It was awesome. It was like, honestly, one of the best weekends of my life, like still to this day, hanging out with everybody and meeting everybody. And it was a damn good time. But now back to the show. Let's do this. So the first haunting that I looked up was the Tennessee State Prison in Nashville. It's located just minutes away from downtown Nashville. The Tennessee State Prison closed in 1992. In 1902, a group of 17 imprisoned men blew what the hell did I put? Oh, they blew out the end of one of the prison wings. It would kill an inmate and allow two of them to escape. The two that escaped were never captured. So it was a good jailbreak. Another problem was when a group of prisoners had gained control of the White Wing. They would hold this segregated wing captive for 18 hours. After 18 hours, they would surrender. It was in 1907 that several convicts had gained control of a switch engine They proceeded to drive it through the gate of the prison. There was a mass escape stage in 1939. They had several fires ignited, and one of them had destroyed the dining room. There were many riots that had occurred between 75 and 85. So there was a lot of history, a lot of energy in this prison, as there is with all prisons, and there was this was a prison where they executed people. So have you ever heard anything about that? Or, do you know anything?
It's weird. Like a lot of the nuanced stuff I didn't. That was very like just hit me over the head with the history book kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What I did know was like about it because I'm only about 2.5, 3 hours away from there. My dad actually lives out that way now. He lives just north of Nashville in I forgot the name of the town. But it's like literally 30 minutes north. But the stuff about like that place, I'm pretty sure, like you said, was that was the place that housed like the guy who assassinated Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Went to that prison.
Yep.
When he did what he did in Memphis. Nashville was kind of the hub, for the state, corporal punishment kind of stuff. And then, Johnny Cash playing for the inmates, on a tour there. So a lot of that I knew. And of course, it's not a big, super fancy nickname, but yeah, for most of the southern states that had the electric chair, and them commissioning that was their death penalty, basically, and then calling it Old Sparky. So, that I knew, but you're kind of, your background of the history of what inmates tried to do to escape that place for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So that's my history on it, what I did know, but it's so cool seeing someone dig a little bit deeper, just to give more, like you said, that explains a lot of the energy going on, not just the fact of them flipping switches,
and they filmed a couple of movies there, the Green Mile, Ernest Goes to Jail, The Last Castle. But it's, like I said, it's most famous for the prison breaks, the riots, the fires, and the inhumane conditions. Now, it was built in 1889, and it has such a rich history that's why I think that a lot of the things that people have said that they've seen or heard, mostly because I really didn't find anything where people said they saw like apparitions or anything like that. Nobody reported any kind of like mists or anything. Majority of them were sounds that they heard. They would hear like clanging in the cells. You may feel like cold spots in the area, which in an old building, it could be something, it could not, it could just be a cold spot, but with the energy that's there, there's no doubt in my mind that there has to be something there. There was 100 prisoners that were executed in Old Sparky, so there has to be something there. People have also heard phantom footsteps, which, could somebody be in the building when they're not supposed to be? Of course, as always, but they've had, paranormal investigators go and investigate, and it's multiple people that have caught these sounds. It's not just, one group that's like, oh my God, we got this. No, like multiple people have experienced all these significant things in the haunting. So I think, I think that, with a place like that, there's a very, very, very good chance that it houses some type of negative energy, especially if the conditions were very bad. As prisons back in the day, they didn't really keep them up that great. You were there because you fucked up in life, and you didn't have any rights, especially back in like the 50s, 60s, so I honestly think that there's a lot. I've done an investigation at just a county jail. We went to the Lavaca County Jail, and we got tons of just crazy evidence, and that was one of the first investigations that my group did together, when we first formed, and it was just mind-blowing, the things that we got and the energy that was there. I felt something touch me. That was the first time in an investigation something has physically like put its hand on me, and I felt it, and there was nobody around me. So prisons and jails and stuff like that have that kind of negative history, more than, they for sure, it's something's going on in there. Now, I would love to see if somebody ever does catch anything that is like a full body apparition or something like that. But from the research that I did, I didn't see that. It's just all sounds that people have heard. So, but did you have anything else on that one?
No, I mean, you touched on it. I mean, it's a place I can tell you this. I have not visited it yet, but and that's what's weird. I've been down here about 5 years. I'm literally just 20 minutes south of Memphis and all its crazy history.
Yes.
And then Nashville's about 3 hours away. Then, you're on the banks of the Mississippi River, which you learn more about that every day. So I'm learning more because honestly, before I moved out here, being in Illinois, I was starting to really understand some of the stuff that was going on in Illinois or history in Illinois when it came to ghosts and Greenwood Cemetery that we were lived next to and all that. So then coming out here, it's kind of like in your face because everything's Southern, a little bit older, and the heritage stuff really starts to permeate because there's a lot more, that's just around that people are willing to talk about when it comes to this kind of stuff. So
yeah. Hey, what's up, Frankie? We got Frankie Clayton here. What's going on, man? Hope you're doing good, bud. I know he had been sick or something. He was at the doctor or something. So glad to see you doing good. Let me read something from the chat before we move on to the next one. It says, it's so fascinating that people from around the world will experience similar paranormal activities. At what point do you think we need to start accepting the other side of the world instead of being freaked out by it? What do you mean? The other side of the globe, or the other side as in paranormal? Because I mean, that's just something we should all accept either way, whether it's other cultures or whatever, or even the afterlife. People should just accept it. I mean, it's energy. We're all energy, and energy never disappears. So, that's something that I've accepted for a very long time. So the next one was kind of a funny read for me. You want to go ahead and talk about this one?
Well, I mean, I can read it and then I'll give you my
go for it, man. Go for it.
Small, tiny perspective on it. But so the Meeman Shelby Forest and the Pigman in Germantown, Tennessee. Germantown, Tennessee, for me is about less than 30 minutes from me. And it's actually about 20 minutes off the interstate going eastbound from Memphis. Germantown's one of those towns that started to grow so you got Memphis. Memphis has always been a big populated area, but then when it started getting too populated, it's like, people started moving outwards and creating these little smaller historical towns that kind of developed. So you're looking at about 13,000 acres of land. The most well-known ghost is that of a man who worked at a local explosive plant, obviously, during the Second World War. He was horribly, wickedly disfigured during an accident and was given the nickname Pigman. The stories of Pigman are that he wanders around in the dead of night wearing the face of a pig looking for his next victim. Another version of Pigman tale describes him as a recluse who would put a dead pig head on spikes around his property to keep people away. Kind of a redneck Vlad the Impaler. And trust me, I'm not too surprised. I've been down here long enough. And now that he has passed on, he haunts his property, scaring those who come near. The third story claims Pigman was an animal trainer in the circus and was mauled by pigs that turned on him and killed him. He is said to appear with a human body and the head of a pig and accompanied by a horrible stench before it happens. There's also a bridge in Millington, Tennessee that is said that if you call his name 3 times, he will appear. And maybe a ghost, maybe someone playing a trick. Either way, beware. So my only 2 cents with this is I've heard this, and the only reason I started hearing this is because I help with some local pro wrestling events, mainly security. And there's a gentleman who kind of embodies this character, if you will. He's a smaller, scrawnier guy, kind of a luchador type aerial assault guy, if you will. But he comes out and he embraces the whole haunted, scary aspect. Comes out with smoke coming out of his head and through the entrance, whatever. But he wears a pig mask that he removes. And that pig mask, man, it creates that extra sense of fear. And after talking with him a little bit and talking and understanding why he did it, it had ties into this kind of I don't know which of these stories, but this kind of angle. And with it being, you're in that heart of the southern belt of wrestling, and but then you have the ties into some, ghost related horror type stories. I couldn't tell you which one of these sounds more real, because I feel like this could be a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I do believe that I feel like it may be associated with an accident and being deformed. I could see where that plays into effect. Being a Friday the 13th fan, and it and seeing how the aspects of deformities and certain things freak people out without an understanding, and then seeing for even though it's a very out there kind of story, that sounds like that's the most likely case scenario. Someone lashes out after being made fun of because of a disfigurement, and then maybe later on dying in some manner that it's just kind of a vengeful spirit that's just always wanting to take it out. So I don't know. I mean, I've heard of it before. I just wish I could kind of pick which one I think it's more inclined to.
Yeah.
But it's still an interesting story in the case. I don't see my ass going to Millington anytime soon.
Oh yeah, hell no.
But,
I mean, regardless of which one
I'm
the
not
story
too
really
timid,
is.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's one
exactly.
thing to experience it, but I'm going to be making curtain calls to anybody saying, hey, let's see if this works.
Yeah, let's get on this bridge and call the pig man, see if he shows up.
Right.
So when I read this, the only thing that popped in my head was the movie Motel Hell.
Okay.
You ever seen that one?
Yes.
That he wears the pig. That's the only thing
I
that
got
popped in my head. So, but I mean, it's very interesting because this also could be something like think Friday the 13th Part 5.
Yeah.
Anybody could be this. Anybody could be this character, this legend, and all it would take is a pig's head. Some crazy dude could be, running out in the woods and batshit crazy, and he's like, "Oh, I'm the pig man," and so it supernatural, maybe, but who knows? The next topic, though, holy shit, this is one of the ones that it's probably the longest one we're going to talk about. Well, I know it's the longest text that I typed out for it. It's the Bell Witch Cave in Adams, Tennessee. Do you know anything about the Bell Witch Cave before this?
Zero. Before I read it, nothing.
Okay, so I watch a lot of paranormal shows. Of course, I watch, a lot of fucking horror movies, and I had seen a movie about the Bell Witch. I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Didn't know it was real. Had no fucking idea it was real until I was watching an episode. I don't remember if it was Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures or maybe one of the knockoffs. I don't know, but they did an investigation in the area of the Bell Witch Cave. And I was like, holy shit, like this shit really went down. Like this was legit. There's proof that all of this stuff happened. So, taken from bellwitchcave.com, because I have to give credit where credit is due, and bellwitchcave.com is where I got this. So John Bell, a farmer from North Carolina, along with his wife and children, settled in northern Robertson County, Tennessee in 1804. Their farm consisted of 320 acres of rich farmland and laid along the Red River. They lived a quiet, peaceful life there for 13 years and were members of the Red River Baptist Church, where John became a deacon. The family grew and became somewhat prosperous. In the late summer of 1817, something would happen that would change their lives forever. Some members of the family began seeing strange-looking animals around the property. Now, when I read that, anytime I see strange-looking animal or some kind of humanoid animal, I think skinwalkers.
Okay.
Everything always goes back to skinwalkers for me. So that's what I thought at first. I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. So then it continues to say, then late at night, they started hearing knocking sounds on the doors and the outer walls of the house. Later, sounds were being heard in the house. Sounds of a rat gnawing on the bedpost, chains being dragged through the house, stones being dropped on the wooden floors, then gulping and choking sounds. Holy shit, that's kind of creepy. Like, especially talking about hearing sawing noises and the little footsteps. Yeah, huh. So the family was terrified, but kept the problem to themselves for over a year. Of course, I mean, especially back in those days, in the 1800s, you didn't want to go around saying, oh, well, I heard this or I heard this, because people would be like, oh, well, what are you doing in your house? You're a witch. Let's burn this shit down, So when things became intolerable, John confided in a neighbor James Johnson. He invited Mr. and Mrs. Johnson to spend the night. After several nights of witnessing the strange things, Mr. Johnson suggested that more people should be told, and a committee was formed and an investigation started. It was not long before people were coming from miles around to hear and witness the unseen force that was terrorizing the Bell home. Before long, this unseen force had gained enough strength that it now had a voice. When asked who and what it was, it gave different identities. It once stated it was the witch of a neighbor named Katie Batts. This was what many people believed, and from then on, the unseen force was called Kate and the Bell's witch. So what could have happened here is it could have just been a simple kind of poltergeist type of haunting, but because they gave it energy from people coming and seeing it, and this entity being able to draw energy from these people, it blew up into something bigger, because a lot of times that's what happens. You have a spirit that is very, very weak, but you start getting people in, and especially people that believe or that are scared. And I genuinely believe that these things feed on fear, especially if they're not good, so that's could be what we have here. So it seemed that Kate had two main reasons for visiting the Bell home. The main one was to kill John Bell. For what reason, no one knows, because Kate never gave a reason why. The bitch just wanted to kill him. The second reason was to stop John's youngest daughter, Betsy, from marrying a certain neighbor boy named Joshua Gardner. Over the next 3 years, Kate tormented members of the Bell family almost daily. John and his daughter Betsy were the ones who received the worst of the physical abuse. Betsy had her hair pulled. She was pinched, scratched, stuck with pins, and even beaten. At what point do you just say, I'm done? Fuck it. I'm moving out. Let's just pack up. We'll sell the farm. Man. I love this stuff. And like I said, I would love to experience this, but I mean, fuck, man, enough is enough, While John Bell began suffering from spells of swelling of the throat and often had the feeling of a stick being sideways in his throat. Oh, wow. Then came the twitching and jerking of the facial muscles. Kate would blast him with curses and hideous threats during these spells. As time went on, John Bell became weaker and weaker. Kate was becoming well known and drew large crowds of people. Big mistake. She seemed to be very intelligent in many things: the Bible, people's past and future. She could be in two places at the same time, miles apart from each other. Kate finally accomplished her mission for coming to the Bell farm. On December 20th, 1820, John Bell had died. It was believed that he was poisoned by Kate, and Kate took full credit for his death. And then in March of 1821, young Betsy broke off her engagement with Joshua Gardner. Kate then bid everyone farewell and promised to return in 7 years. She did return in 1828 for a few short weeks. During this visit, she came to the home of John Bell Jr. and had long talks with him about the past, the present, and the future. She made some predictions for the future. Kate also said there was a reason for John Bell's death. However, she never said what the reason was. After the second visit, she said her next return would be in 107 years. That would have been in 1935. But some believe that she, Kate, never left the area at all due to strange things that have occurred in and around the town of Adams and the Bell Witch Cave over these many years. So now that I think about it, it wasn't Ghost Hunters, it wasn't Ghost Adventures. It was something that I had seen on Amazon Prime. And these guys had gone to the property because there still is a house there. But they were this family was experiencing the same stuff that was occurring at the house of John Bell, but it was in a different location. But they were hearing the bangings, and they told the sheriff, and the sheriff was coming out, and there was never anybody out there. But even the sheriff was like, yeah, we've heard the banging. Like, we've been here while somebody was banging outside. And they showed the police cam footage and everything. And they went outside and there was nobody to be found. So this ghost hunting team set up all around the perimeter of this property to try to catch somebody, maybe sneaking into the property to try to scare these people. And they even went to the Bell Witch Cave to try to get, some evidence there. And things were moving in the house. Pictures were falling off the wall. There was a dark entity that you saw kind of peek in the frame and then go out. And so there's no doubt in my mind that it could have been Kate. Like I said, with the energy, especially if hundreds of people were coming to witnessed this entity, and they gave this entity. I mean, for one, they fucked up naming the entity. You never give an entity a name ever. That's your first mistake. But having it come and go, and then come and go, people bringing energy, especially because back then people were scared. People were scared of a lot of stuff back then, especially the unknown. So they basically gave this witch life. Now maybe it was somebody that had lived in the area before, and she really was a witch. I'm thinking something demonic, especially with the things that I've read about this haunting, and all of this is very well documented. There's newspaper articles, there's tons and tons of things that have been written about the Bell Witch and the hauntings there. So there's no doubt in my mind that this is definitely a paranormal experience right there. What do you think?
I don't know, man. Yeah, it's weird how much information there is on it. Because once I was reading this and just really starting to break off and trying to pages and pages, and I think in 2008 there was some type of like hour-long documentary even made on it, or in some form of it. But that's interesting. But yeah, like you said, and it could be one of those things where this entity is just all about attention. But when just like anything else, when you feed people attention, dead or alive,
yeah,
it builds up an ego, and there's nothing saying that entities can't have egos too. And then feeding off of that, just they may get their rocks off on it, because in some cases they don't even realize, they may realize that they're, just kind of dead in a sense, but why would that change the kind of person or, thing they were? So definitely that's an interesting, I'm going to end up digging deeper into that than I probably should. Well, but
so if I ever make my way to Tennessee for an investigation, you're coming with me and we're going.
I know. And then I know the next thing you're going to ask is, can we take the Ghostbuster car? I already know you're going to ask.
Can we take the Ghostbuster car, for the love of God?
There's plenty of room for all the tools needed.
So we've been talking about, we have, our EMF readers, and I want to buy a PKE meter, the toy that they sell at Walmart, and I'm going to mod it and I'm going to put that EMF reader, because, right in the center of the PKE, it's the perfect size for that EMF. Yep. So if I cut that out, so eventually you're going to see my dumb ass on Facebook with a PKE meter that's really an EMF reader, because I'm going to do it. It's going to,
and I'm not going to be here to argue with you. It's fine. I mean, that's the whole point,
So I know you have some personal, not maybe personal haunted experience, but you have some personal experience with this next one. So I'm going to let you take this last one right here.
That's cool. All right. The Orpheum Theater in Memphis, Tennessee. Originally the Grand Opera House, which burned down in 1923, the Orpheum Theater was opened in 1928. It is the Mid-South home to traveling Broadway productions and holds a total of 2,308 seats, and was one of the first buildings to be placed on the National Register of Historic Places in the city of Memphis. There are supposedly 6 spirits which inhabit the Orpheum, but the best known is that of Mary, a 12-year-old girl who is said to show up the most. One of the most famous people to witness Mary was Yul Brynner while rehearsing for the King and I in 1982. She has been seen wearing a white dress and has long braided brown hair. She is seen in the balcony in seat CF. Other reports have listed Mary as a 9-year-old girl who lost her life in front of the theater in a car accident. But in either case, the descriptions are the same of her. One story is that the ghost of the girl who died in a fire when the Orpheum burned down in the early 1900s. Another is that she fell from the balcony to her death. There are also reports of lights flickering, doors slamming. There's also a masked ghost who is said to be in the theater, air ducts, and has been seen waving during performances. Now, the Orpheum is interesting. That was one of the first places I was told about when I moved down here, because of how old it was. And, walking in there, going to some shows with my now wife, it's still very old school. And I mean that is in terms of back in the day before everyone was super fat ass like me. you had to fit into these seats, and they're the original Orpheum seats. Okay, they're about this wide. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's almost like I've been there, and there's certain areas that are blocked off. Everything's been restored, if you will. But that's the first thing I ever heard of was all these stories, especially with the little girl. It is kind of weird because you're in there, and the Orpheum's, obviously a little bit different, has some updates to it, but you do see where they've put in, sections to make sure that these shorter balcony rails that could easily, if you're running down the balcony towards the balcony on these upper levels, they had to put giant clear guards up so you don't fly over them. So I could definitely see that happening. And then seeing where all the electric candles are now, then realizing that that's probably where real candles were. It's easy to see how this place could go up in flames, whether it was playing old film or, drapery or this. I mean, stuff's always switched out. When they had chandeliers in the old shows back in the 1920s and everything, all those chandeliers had real candles, so I could see a lot of these different storylines going on. Have I seen anything since I've been here? No. But I've heard enough that I would like to actually go when it's trying to be understood, go when there's not a lot of action going on when it comes to shows and all that. Oddly enough, I did end up proposing to my wife outside of the Orpheum right before we went to go see, was it Oz? I think it was, or something. So that was pretty cool. But it's pretty old school, and it's neat because I've seen a lot of stuff there. I've seen, people perform and all that, but just to know that there are some, there is some energy and history behind it has been pretty neat. I'd love to experience it, especially in that kind of building, because that is still one of the truer buildings there that, has a lot of history and hasn't been totally remodeled or totally demolished and built back up in a way that might compromise anything. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, with the history there, there's documented proof that this little girl did die in an accident, and whether that's Mary or not, there's still some kind of proof that leads me to believe that, more than likely this is a haunted area, but next time you're there, after all this COVID crap, and, maybe you'll keep an eye up in the rafters and you'll see the little phantom of the Orpheum waving at you.
Well, and then the fact that there hasn't been anything going on, I'm pretty sure there could be some, I'm pretty, like I said, I think sometimes spirits or whatever, or that are still in those areas. I mean, if they don't have anything to kind of release, I think it's the same thing as being a human being. If you're kind of don't have that contact for a while, and you finally do, it's going to be super crazy and super awkward, because it's like, I feel like if you went now when there's nothing really going on, nothing saying that these entities aren't really wanting to show out or get back to their routine, if you will, because some of them, I think, they're probably accustomed to it. So
yeah, definitely. Well, man, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. But before we do, I just want to throw a few honorable mentions out there. Yeah. Ernestine and Hazel's, the Metal Museum, and the Molly Fontaine Lounge.
Correct.
If you guys want to look them up, there was some really cool stuff on there. I just didn't have time to squeeze them in. So, Corey, man, I want to thank you so much for coming in and sharing your experience, man. I know when we first talked about it, you were like, I have something I want to say, so I'm glad that I got to get you on here, and
I appreciate it,
and just shoot the shit with you, man. And you want to give a throw out to any of the stuff you got going? You want to, any of your products that you have?
Me and Dale, actually, Cabin 13, my buddy Dale, who's the other half of Cabin 13, he's actually just recovering. Him and his wife are recovering from COVID. Nothing too crazy, but the fact is, they got it, they're recovering. So we're getting back in that mode. It's post haunt Halloween type season for us at Cabin 13, but we're getting back at the swing of things. We got a lot of stuff going on. It's been kind of a lull, just trying to catch up on orders. So definitely give us a like and follow. We got a lot of cool designs and a lot of cool pieces, whether it's shirt designs and resin casts and stuff that we're working on.
I need to pick me up one of those statues you guys have on there, those little resin busts
man,
you guys have.
You should, and then you're going to be like, crap, because Dale has really, me and him have tag teamed on some things, and he's working on a couple sculptures right now that I'm like, I can't wait till I can have it in my possession to paint.
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
So keep an eye out for that. So yeah, Cabin 13 again. You're going to see a lot of me. I try to stay as involved as I can down here. There's so much going on down here, which is still good. I mean, yeah, in the southern states, it's a little bit lax in terms of rules.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
you know, as being part of the Ghostbusters, we're still trying to appease families that are struggling and all that, and helping them out. So again, follow me and my team at DeSoto County Ghostbusters. Just because we're in the Memphis area doesn't mean we can't reach out to you guys. We have a pretty good following, and we keep doing, spreading our love and what we can for, St. Jude Children's Hospital and the Ronald McDonald House. That's our big two places we like to give back to. So
awesome.
I appreciate you letting me do that. And I appreciate you bringing me on the show, man. I mean,
man, anytime.
So whatever you need from me, if you need me back for anything,
saying,
hey, we need to talk more about some Mississippi stuff. There's some crazy stuff that happens down in Mississippi. There's a couple crossroad areas, a couple haunted, railroads that some of the Ghostbusters actually have actually went ahead and went out on some things with. I haven't got the opportunity yet, but it's there. So you let me know, man. And again,
awesome.
Thank you
definitely
for letting me hop on.
So next episode 5 of Somewhat Supernatural, will be featuring the man, the myth, TJ Bowser, and we will be talking UFOs in that one right there. So have your tinfoil hats ready, because it's going to go down. So don't forget, the audio version will be available on iTunes, Spotify, and over at projectlouder.net. Once again, guys, all of you that have tuned in tonight, I want to thank you guys. And Corey, once again, thank you, man. I appreciate you being here. So you guys stay spooky. I'll see you in 2 weeks.